going to talk about flexible budgets, which is an important tool for financial accounting. A budget, as you know, is a plan that is drafted at the beginning of the year to know the allocation of the financial resources. To understand the idea of flexible budget, let's take an example of Joe, who's a manager at the maintenance crew of a ski resort. Joe has come up with a budget at the beginning of the year. I'm sorry for the view of the whiteboard, which is inverted, so I'm going to go through the budget with you. So he drafted a budget for 100 days with variable expenses for wages, so that he's going to pay his employees $150,000, and supplies such as the toolkit, etc., for $50,000, so they have variable expense for $200,000, and a fixed cost such as the amortization of the equipment for $100,000. So we have a grand total of $300,000. But in reality, Joe and his team worked for 120 days. The ski resort was open for more days because it happened to be a colder year. So the variable expense, we have $170,000 for the wages, $65,000 for supplies, and amortization increased by $5,000, so we have $105,000 at the end of the year. Now Joe's boss is evaluating how he has done and how he performed as opposed to the budget. So let's look at the variance. Now variance in accounting means the difference between the actual budget and the budget drafted at the beginning of the year. Unlike statistics, variance does not mean anything else. It's a pretty simple definition. So as we see, we have a $20,000 unfavorable variance for wages. We have $15,000 unfavorable difference for supplies, which gives us a $35,000 unfavorable difference for the variable expense, $5,000. So we have overshot the budget by $40,000. Now Joe's boss would be very upset looking at how he has not handled the budget and he overshot it. But would this be an appropriate comparison? Because of the change in activity, we are comparing apples to oranges. This budget is a static budget. A static budget essentially is a budget that has a fixed amount of time or output for the organization. So this is the static budget, which is a great tool for planning, but not so much at the end of the year when we have some changes in actual production or activity. So in fact, we would erase this variance, and this is where we get our help from flexible budgets. Now for flexible budget, we would change the costs of this based on the actual activity or amount of production performed for day one. So this would be budget going back in time. We would draft up the budget thinking for 120 days. So let's make a flexible budget for that. Do so, we would need the per unit cost, or in this case, the per day cost for wage supply, and we would multiply that by 120 days. So let's do the formula for this would be $150,000 divided by 100, so that would be $1,500 per day for wages. It would be $500 per day for wages. And the amortization, because it is a fixed cost, it's not calculated per day, would stay the same. We would multiply this per day cost for the number of days we actually worked. So 1,500 times 120, that would give us $180,000. 500 times 120, that would be $60,000. And we have a total of 140. And because the amortization costs stayed the same, and now we would Now this flexible budget could be compared to the actual budget because they have the same number of days of work. So this would be comparing apples to apples, and now the variance could be calculated. So this variance would be 10,000 favorable, 5,000 unfavorable, it was 5,000 favorable, 5,000 unfavorable, with no variance at all. So what does that mean? So we projected that our expense would be $1,800,000, but we actually have a decrease in wages, so we saved $10,000. We overshot our budget by $5,000 for supplies, and we overshot our budget by $5,000 for amortization. So all in all, we did not have any variance between the actual budget and in reality our real expenses. So this has been spot on. So this is where the flexible budget comes in place, and you can compare in reality what has happened to what should have happened. This is a great structure and a tool.